Everybody loves exclusives, right? Hey guys, I am Pixel Dan. Welcome back to another video here on my channel. I'm doing that thing again where I'm catching up on a whole bunch of Masters of the Universe Origins figures that I have yet to open and do videos on. So we're doing a big lump sum of them in today's video, and the theme for this one is exclusives. It's all MattelCreations.com exclusives, which means the majority of these are like the proper vintage toy line versions of characters from the MOTU Origins line, but we've also got a cartoon collection figure mixed in there as well. Bunch of that stuff that I just haven't looked at yet. So even though a lot of you guys have probably had a bunch of these figures for a long time, hopefully you still care about my opinion on all of these figures, because that's what we're doing today. We're going to take a look at them. I'm going to do my best to add timestamps to this video, so if there's only one specific figure or a couple specific figures you're interested in checking out, you should be able to jump through the video easily. With that being said, let's dive right into some Mattel Creations exclusives. All right. Let's kick things off with Rio Blast, the heroic transforming gunslinger. Yeah, this is definitely one of the ones I'd classify as one of the weirdos from the original line. You know, like a space cowboy character. It's a bit strange in a mostly barbarian and magic-themed world, but we got that science fiction injected in there. They did all kinds of wild things in the original line, and I've always had a soft spot for Rio Blast, and I'm glad that he got an official release here in Origins. So his packaging, like all of the figures you're going to see in today's video, the Mattel Creations exclusives, they all come on the collector-friendly blister card. So it's a little different than the ones you would see at retail. You've got that extra piece of art on the front there with that classic look, and then the back, instead of a cross-cell, you have more beautiful artwork. So you can see Rio Blast doing battle with Grizzlor and Modulok in 2 parts. That's pretty fun stuff. And in order to get to the action figure, you can just slide this backer card right out of there. You guys are probably all familiar with these by now, but I love this. I love that they do the collector-friendly packaging here for these exclusives. So you do have a brand new included mini comic with this figure, and it's very easy then to just pull this figure out of that blister. So let's go ahead and do that now. We'll get a close look at the toy itself. So the included mini comic here with Rio Blast is titled Star Marshal, which I love. You can see it looks like he's doing battle with the evil horde here. Leech, Mantana, Modulok, all appearing in the mini comic. And there's some really fun stuff going on here. Like who are these weirdos right here? Is that Star Fox? Who are these weirdos? I love it. Also, they just keep teasing me with the slime pit here. We better get that slime pit playset. Is that 3030? This is a crazy comic. All right, we got Rio Blast outside of the box. We'll go ahead and start with this. I'm sure you guys know by now, but in case you're new to this, the MOTU Origins line is technically in that 5.5 scale, but they can straighten their legs out, so they do stand closer to 6 inches tall, but they're definitely more in that squat 5.5 build, which should match up pretty well with the vintage line. Rio Blast looks awesome. I'm just going to say it. Like, right out of the box, I love the look of this one. The colors and the paint look very nice on here. The blue shirt is more of like a deeper blue. The original one had more of like a light blue look to it, but I like this, and I love that shiny silver that they used on here, the red on the badge. Also, I love little details like this, these little cables that they've added to him here. So those are on the vintage figure, but they're part of the arm sculpt on the vintage toy. So this is kind of cool how they added them as like extra pieces, and you can see they actually just plug into the arms there. So, you know, the arms would still be removable on this figure just like any of them. In fact, you do have to plug those into the wrists right out of the package. But I think that's a neat little detail that they added that there. That head sculpt is fantastic. He's got that Charles Bronson look to him. Got a very like 70s look. I love it. So did the vintage one, but I think it really translates very well on this new figure here. In fact, it's so clean. It looks really good. I like it. And then he's got his little backpack accessory, of course. So this actually even clips on very similar to the vintage one, where you can see they've got these little holes on the back. You kind of put it at its side and then twist it, and that locks it in place. So it's stuck on the figure. So that right there is our complete figure. He doesn't come with any other accessories because his whole body is a weapon. So before we get to all that, it is worth noting articulation still functions just like all the other figures in this line, which is very nice. So nothing is out of the ordinary here. He still has all the same removable parts. So if you want to pop the head off, you can. You can see, looks like the body's molded in the blue with the painted neck there. So the head will still pop off. You can still pop the arms out of the socket. I just lost that little cable there. You could still pop him apart at the waist. So you can remove the torso there if you want to. So all of these pieces still function exactly the way you would expect them to. You can still even pull the wrist out of sockets. So the mixing and matching is still here, just like we've seen across the board on the Classics line since the line launched way back in 2020. So posing him around, I think you are going to run into this. These wires are going to pop out of socket from time to time. Not a huge deal. It's just kind of something that it looks like will happen. Like, once you find your pose, I think this will be okay. It is a little annoying because you can see it just keeps popping out of the socket on his back here. Come on, cable, stay attached to the figure. Okay, I think I got it. I think I got it. All right, so now we get to talk about all the fun weapons here on Rio Blast. Of course, he's got the little quick draw guns, which work just by flipping them forward. They're attached to the palms of his hands. Works just like on the vintage figure. You can see it's just a little peg going right there through the middle of his hands. But you've got that extra articulation now of like the elbow bend and everything, so that's pretty cool. Then, of course, you got the chest. You can fold the chest open, and that houses a hidden red gun on the inside. You can also see there's lots of like sculpted cybernetic parts inside the chest. It would have been cool if we got some extra paint deco in there. I get it. I understand, but it would be cool to see that all painted. I do love this, though, because if we're talking about the MOTU Classics line, I think Rio Blast is one of the figures that was kind of fumbled in that line because they didn't give him the chest cavity. They just attached a fold-down flap to his armor, which was way too bulky and it looked weird. So I love seeing the returning, like, hollowed-out chest cavity with the gun hidden inside of it. I think that is perfect. Same with the legs here. So look, you can fold down the little flaps on his thighs, which also uncover little red guns. These look similar to the design of the vintage one, but they feel smaller. Or maybe they're set in a little deeper. I feel like maybe it's because they didn't go as deep on the cavities on the thighs, but I feel like the guns were raised up a little higher on the vintage one. We'll definitely do a comparison here in just a little bit. And then, of course, the last piece of this is the backpack folds up. It like slides up and then folds forward over the figure's head. So now we've got like these blasters coming over his shoulders, which completes the look. I mean, look at this dude. He is armed up here, ready to go. So the little goggles don't sit perfectly up against his face. You definitely want to like find a way to pose it so that you don't see his eyes. I do love the little scope and everything sculpted on there. Again, no extra paint deco. It's just molded in like a silverish plastic, which so is the vintage one. But I don't know. I love this. I think this is really cool looking. It does a great job of capturing the look of the vintage Rio Blast figure, just with the modern articulation and everything that you've come to expect. All right, guys, it's comparison time. Here we got to fold out all of these pieces here. There you go. There is our vintage Rio Blast compared to the new Origins one. Yeah, look what I was talking about down there. I was totally right. The guns on the legs are like raised up a little bit higher on the vintage one, so it looks like they're at least coming over the little fold down flap. Those crevices are deeper on the thighs there. So like that's one thing I will say. The Origins one, like they almost don't even look like they're going over the little flap. So I don't know. I guess consider that a minor critique there, but otherwise, like, that's a really nice update. It's pretty cool looking at these two side by side. Here, let's go ahead and do the full thing here. Oh man, look at these space cowboys ready for battle. These are super fun. Seriously, I really like Rio Blast. This is a fun one. I'm glad we got him. Demo Man, the evil spirit of Despondos. So this one's a really interesting one. I was honestly kind of surprised to see them bring this character into Origins. I think it's cool though. So if this is like your first time ever hearing about this, or if Origins was your first time hearing about this, this is an early villain character design by Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor being the guy who designed most of those early figures in this line. Like, he's the guy that we have to thank for why MOTU mostly looks like MOTU in those early days. You know, he was at one time thought to be sort of like a early version of Skeletor or prototype Skeletor, but I think now we've kind of realized that that's not necessarily the case, but Mattel still kind of ties him now to Skeletor's origin, being like this demon from Despondos that Skeletor was sort of merged with to form Skeletor, like Geldor and Demo Man equals Skeletor, I guess, right? I think that's like basically the story we got when the MOTU Classics line with him. I'm honestly not sure if it's the same with this. Again, collector-friendly packaging. Look at this artwork. How metal is that? All of these skeleton warriors on there. You got pterodactyls flying in the background. This is freaking epic. I really love it. So same thing, we can remove that card back there, and of course we do have a mini comic included, and we can just pop the figure right out of the package there. So Demo Man comes with a new mini comic titled Soul Keeper, and even from the artwork on the front, it looks like they're kind of holding on to that origin for Skeletor there. You know, spoiler alert, obviously, if you don't want to be spoiled on this, but reading through this, you can see where that is basically what they're doing. You got Geldor, you got the melting face right out of 2000X. He's begging Hordak for help. Hordak merges him with Demo Man to create Skeletor. So kind of the same thing, but interesting twist because this climax of this duel, which I'm not sure exactly when this particular duel takes place, like maybe like in, is this like the final battle with He-Man and Skeletor? But He-Man hits Skeletor so hard, he excises the demon of Demo Man from Skeletor, and then Skeletor and Demo Man fight. This is wild. Man, the lore in MOTU has kind of gotten out of control. Not gonna lie. So here's Demo Man outside of the packaging. I mean, this is a fun one. I love it. I mean, it does a great job of capturing the look of Mark Taylor's original artwork, brought into that 5.5 styling, so he has more of that vintage action figure build. In fact, he's got a really close resemblance to the MOTU Classics version of this figure. So we'll definitely be doing a comparison time with that here a little later on. But some fun stuff going on here. You can see he's got like a full tunic on the body here, which is pretty cool. And then he's got this over-the-shoulder like armor piece. So if we pop the head off the joint, you can see this is just like a separate piece that pops on over this. This is interesting. I wonder if they'll use this for like a pre-Eternia disguise He-Man at some points. I don't think his was tattered like this, but that's an interesting full body suit there. Yeah, so this just sits over the shoulders. It's kind of like loose armor. It's molded in the silver. They painted kind of like this bronzes gold on the front. And then the wrist bracers are like the spiky wrist bracers, which is part of the mold of the forearms. But he's also got this extra piece over here, this extra armor bit, which again looks a lot like what was on MOTU Classics. I don't think it's exactly the same. It looks a little different. So unique to Demo Man here. You can see they gave him like just the standard Skeletor type feet, the pointed feet there, which looks pretty cool. So fun stuff. And he's got a bunch of accessories. So weapons wise, he comes with this like scimitar type sword and this spiked mace, which are both in that artwork there of the character. So both of these are unpainted. They're just molded in like a silvery plastic, but he has two gripping hands, so you can hold on to both of these weapons at once to kind of get the look of the figure right off of that artwork. And then he comes with two interchangeable heads. So both of these are reused. We've seen both of these heads before. This skeleton we saw with the Skeleton Warriors pack, though this one is not glow in the dark. It's got a regular like bone color to it. The reason this head is included, they did the same thing in MOTU Classics. In the artwork, there's like a skull with a helmet on the ground at the feet of Demo Man. So it's included for this look right here. But what's cool about that is it is an actual head. So if you want to put it on this body or any of the other bodies in the MOTU Classics line, it does pop on the ball joint. The small little skull head actually does look funny on these big muscular bodies, but it's an option. That's pretty cool. The other head that's included is a Skeletor head, and this one we first saw in the Geldor Cronus 2-pack, like way back at the beginning of the line, because this is the one that's got the jewel eyes. It's got like translucent red eyes. It's kind of hard to see in the light, but it's pretty cool looking. The paint deco does look a little different on this. In fact, they almost matched it to the color of this figure. It's got a bit more of a yellow tone to it, but you can see it's pretty green. It's a pretty green looking Skeletor head. But again, like you could put this on this figure if you want to. Like if you want to have a moment of like Skeletor's head on the Demo Man body. It also looks kind of strange though with that armor. I don't know, like it's fun that it's included. It's an extra Skeletor head. I don't know. I can't imagine anybody putting that on this particular figure. I just realized why that all looks so weird. It's because of the shape of the Demo Man head. You can see the neck, and the neck peg is probably positioned a little bit different because of the way that this head is. Look at how much more shallow the head is here because it's like smaller. Like look at that compared to the Skeletor head. Like look how much higher the Skeletor head sits. That's why it looks a little weird on the peg. So, I mean, he looks great. Honestly, I like him. I think he's really cool. Like I said, I'm a little surprised to see him in Origins, but it's fun getting him. But this is what I was most looking forward to. It's comparison time! Let's bring in the MOTU Classics version of Demo Man because this is the first time we got Mark Taylor's artwork done as an action figure. So looking at these side by side, you can see there's a lot of similarities between them. Obviously, the MOTU Classics one does have a more premium paint deco, which those figures all did compared to Origins. Origins is a little bit more basic because I guess the vintagey look that they're going for. So you can see that extra armor bit on the side is different on these figures, and the over-the-shoulder armor is similar, but it's also designed different because you can see this is kind of got these looser flat pieces. I almost wonder though if they use that as a base. It does look like it's wider, but this is what I'm really interested in. I'm actually going to pop the head off of this one back here because I want to get a little closer to this one so we can look at these side by side. I am certain that they remolded this head. I'm pretty sure they repurposed the MOTU Classics Demo Man head sculpt for the Origins figure. Obviously, the paint deco is different between them, but that sculpt looks pretty identical. Like maybe they scanned it and redid it or something like that. And honestly, we've seen this before in Origins. I think back with Cronus and maybe even Geldor, but I think I remember comparing Cronus and his head looked the same as the MOTU Classics one. So I think they did the same thing here with Demo Man, which is really interesting. Fun figure though, and certainly makes for a great exclusive because this is one of those characters that a casual fan would go, who? But, you know, people who know who Mark Taylor is, this is a really fun little nod to him. And I think that's great. I'm glad that was included. Geldor, the evil seeker of immortality. This is a fun one to see brought to MOTU Classics. And this is another one, like if you have no idea who this guy is, this was a one-off villain in the original Masters of the Universe mini comics. He was in the issue Secret Liquid of Life and the original toy line. So he's one of those guys who never really appeared anywhere outside of that one mini comic, but he always had a big fan following. In fact, if I remember correctly, it was the German fans specifically who loved this guy and like really wished this guy into existence as a toy back in the MOTU Classics era. So shout out to the German fans. They've been keeping the torch burning for He-Man for quite a long time over there. Huge fans over there in Germany. So pretty fun to see him brought to Origins. Again, same kind of packaging. It's got the collector-friendly card back. You got the extra artwork on there. When you bring it around to the backside, look at this. You've got Geldor doing battle with He-Man. Really fun stuff. And then we can remove that card back. We do have a mini comic we will take a look at here in just a bit. You can remove the action figure just like so. And the new mini comic that Geldor now appears in is called Plague of the Immortal. So really fun stuff. We got a brand new story for Geldor, which is pretty cool to see for this classic character. Okay, we got Geldor outside of the box here. This is a great looking figure. Honestly, like, it's really cool seeing this figure that comes straight out of the vintage toy mini comics, like made as a vintage style action figure for the first time. I think it is perfect. He looks really good too. He's got brand new, unique armor there that looks just like the armor he's wearing in the comic. It even has one little holster on the back so you can put his axe weapon there if that's something you want to do. This also unstraps right here on the back. You can see it attaches to those little knobs right there. So very cool stuff. You can see he's very unique on the boots as well. All of this does a good job of capturing the look of Geldor straight out of the comics, which I think is really awesome to see. Paint deco looks really nice on this guy. He feels really good. Obviously, he's got that basic Origins body there, so all of these parts should still be removable. Removable head, you can pop the figure apart at the waist, you can pull the arms out of socket, so mixing and matching will work really good with this guy, but this is really fun. The head sculpt is really good, and honestly, just like we talked about in the look at Demo Man, I am fairly certain that this is the same mold as the Geldor figure from the MOTU Classics line. So we're definitely going to look closer at that in just a little bit when we do comparison time. But let's go ahead and talk about all of those weapons. You saw me bring in that axe. So first of all, this is cool because this looks like the weird shaped axe that he has right there in those mini comics. It's just molded in the same color silver plastic like the weapons typically are in the MOTU Origins line, but he does get a good grip on it. I showed you how you can also store it on his back if you want to, but they threw in a bunch of other weapons. We've also got the Ram Man axes. I guess for some reason, if you want to double axe this guy up, or these are the two that you can even like stick together to make like a long axe there. We've got that as an option. So now Geldor is just wielding all the axes. And we even have a He-Man shield just molded in all silver. So they just threw in all kinds of crazy accessories with him. What they didn't give him is a little glass of the secret liquid of life, which would have been really nice because they did that for the MOTU Classics version. And that would have been kind of cool because that would have come straight out of the mini comic instead of like all the extra random accessories we got. But I don't know, not really a complaint. I mean, just something I'm pointing out. I'm not going to complain about getting a bunch of extra accessories. All right, guys, it's comparison time. This figure's a little bit taller, but there you go. There is the MOTU Classics version of Geldor, which is the first time he ever got an action figure. But yeah, look at these two side by side. Like, these look a lot alike, right? They did a great job on the Origins one. Like, even the armor is similar, but it's not the same. The armor is different. You can really see it in the shoulder pads there. They're much wider on the new one. Even the top portion over his chest is a bit wider than the MOTU Classics one. You can see the boots are similar, but the head sculpts, let's see if we can get in a little closer here. I want to look at these head sculpts because to me, I am fairly certain they just did the same thing. I think they remolded that head from the MOTU Classics line. Again, the MOTU Classics one has more of a premium paint deco because everything in that line did, but that looks like the same head sculpt to me. I don't know, am I crazy? What do you guys think? I think that's the same. I really like him. I'm happy to see this character. I know that this one has a big fan following, but I also think this is another one that makes a perfect Mattel Creations exclusive because he's totally going to be one of those characters that not everybody knows who he is, so maybe they don't feel like they're missing out on him if they decide not to pick him up as an exclusive. But for longtime fans or fans of those original mini comics, he's a great addition to finally get a 5.5 style action figure of. Hey, it's a cartoon collection figure. Yeah, typically the Mattel Creations exclusives are just part of the standard Origins line, usually more based in the vintage territory, but this is one of the cartoon collection figures, and it's one of the new She-Ra 40th anniversary ones with the Horde card back. So we got Vultak straight out of the Princess of Power series, a new member of the evil Horde. I'm honestly not sure why they decided to make this one a Mattel Creations exclusive. I feel like he would have been right at home in just a standard retail release. I don't know. He's a cool looking character. Maybe he cost a little bit more because of the wings or something. But I don't know. I thought he was kind of an odd choice to be a Mattel Creations exclusive. But because he was, he did get the collector-friendly packaging, so it's got the full piece of artwork on the back with Vultak going into battle against She-Ra and Bo, as seen on the episode Zoo's Story. Look at Cowl back here. Got these crazy little robots straight out of the Filmation cartoon, which he actually comes with one of those, which is pretty funny. So you can just remove that backer card, and we even get a brand new mini comic for the character. You can see the wings are just kind of like laying loosely behind the figure tray, and then we got the figure tray there. And he gets a mini comic titled Shadow Heart. So look at this great artwork in here featuring characters from the Horde. Looks like we get a little bit of a backstory on Vultak, which is pretty sweet. We also get to see Adora and Bo. Look at, is this Adora up here like wearing white instead of red? Or is this, that's not She-Ra, right? Yeah, because that's not, oh, really interesting stuff. Maybe it is. I don't know. Interesting. I'm going to have to actually read through this. But yeah, there you go. New mini comic. All right, so here's our Vultak outside of the box. It does utilize that cartoon collection body, so he does have the straighter legs. You can see designed much like the other characters from the cartoon collection. We also have this like blue collar, the blue feathers that are all separate pieces around the wrists and the neck, which is pretty cool. And then you got the Horde emblem is just like painted on the torso. So it's not sculpted on, it's just painted on, which I guess that does look more like it appeared in the animated series. You got the three-toed monster feet, which is pretty cool. And then those wings I showed you, those were like a separate piece. Very much like the Sorceress. So we got the two holes on the back of the figure there. These are molded in just that same kind of pinkish color. Actually gets a nice, good, solid hold into those holes on the back, and that'll complete the look of the character. And of course, those are articulated as well, so you can lower those, you can raise those. Honestly, this is a very cool looking character, and I'm glad that we're getting some of these other Horde members, some of these other Filmation specific characters. It's always really nice to see characters like this brought to action figure form, especially like in this 5.5 vintage style. Like, this is the type of character you would have watched on the cartoon when you were a kid and then said, how come I don't have a toy of him? Where is he? Well, here he is. He's finally here. I think he looks great. I really like that head sculpt there too. The bright red eyes. I mean, the colors are all just like that straight purple. He's just molded in that purple on the legs and the arms and the head and the wings. But honestly, it contrasts really well with that dark blue and the black of the bodysuit. And then he comes with the little, the zoo guard there. What was this called again? Ah, yes, the Zootron Robot Guard. That's what we got going on here. Actually, he's kind of a solid-feeling little guy. He's a really fun sculpt. Just so Filmation in the way he looks, which I really like. He's got a bit of like a metallic paint deco. It's like this bluish silver, which is really cool. And they did this thing where they added this little handle to his back. They've done this with a bunch of the Filmation accessories, which is kind of silly, I think. I guess that's so you can actually get Vultak to hold him like this? I don't know. It makes him look like a teapot. Like, oh, She-Ra, it's tea time. Would you like a spot of tea? Look, it looks like a tea kettle. I think he's probably better like standing on the ground on your shelf next to the figure. I think this is a much better look for the character. But yeah, I don't know. I think this is a really good figure. He's a nice reuse of parts. He's got some new pieces there, like those feathery bits, and that head sculpt looks really nice. The little included robot is a fun inclusion, and I do just like seeing some of these Filmation-specific characters brought to life. So he's cool. I'm just not entirely sure why he needed to be an exclusive. And then there's Hurricane Hordak. And boy, they went all out on the packaging for Hurricane Hordak. So instead of the blister card, Hordak gets a collector's edition window box, fully showcasing Hordak and his robot arm and all of his little attachments right there inside the window, which is very cool. I love the bright, colorful artwork up on the top. We even have that She-Ra 40th emblem on this particular one, which is pretty cool. But yeah, look at that. Hordak, look at Mantisaur back there. Oh, come on. Origins Mantisaur would be so cool to see. Teela looks terrified in this artwork. But really cool stuff. Look at, you got the fun creatures that you can see on the sides of the box, which just feels very, very old school, like MOTU packaging. And then look at this amazing, amazing nod to the old Earl Norham Horde painting. The original one had just regular Hordak and the evil Horde, but this one's got Hurricane Hordak. And then in the background, you've got Despara back there, which is kind of cool. You've got Dragstore. He's a missing figure in this line. We don't have him yet. And then we've got two other Horde weirdos whose names I don't know. But this is really cool. And then look at that. You've got like Filmation style Fright Zone and Toy style Fright Zone in the back. Beautiful, beautiful box. Excellent artwork. I love this so much. Hurricane Hordak comes with his own brand new mini comic called Eye of the Storm. Beautiful artwork featured in here. Look at that. Cyclone has got a big imprint. Oh, the jet sled. Look at all the jet sleds on there. I love that image of Cyclone as well, flying into battle there to face Hurricane Hordak. I love that, by the way. Hurricane Hordak versus Cyclone. Yeah, I love it. I also love how Teela and He-Man and Clamp Champ are all wearing the armor that goes with the jet sled. That's an amazing attention to detail. Super fun stuff with this mini comic. Guys, look. Look at this beautiful vac metal boy. Oh my goodness. I love me a good vac metal action figure. I am so glad that they did it with Hurricane Hordak. He would not be the same without that super shiny torso. This is awesome. So it's a gold vac metal, though it's a bit of a darker gold than the vintage one. You can see it's like the way the lights are reflecting off of it, it almost makes it look like a shiny black, but it is a gold. It's definitely a gold, at least in my eyes. I'm seeing a gold. It's just not quite as bright as the vintage one. And you can see aside from that, he's got a very basic Hordak look. He's got the darker gray skin tone. He's got that classic Hordak vintage head there. So everything else about this figure you would recognize. Head is still removable. I am really impressed with this paint job. And even though the torso is vac metalized, it does appear that everything is still removable. So you can see it still has the plastic part on the inside that the arm attaches into, even though this is a vac metalized torso. So the plastic's a different type of plastic. So hopefully we shouldn't have to worry about any breakage or any scratching. Now, I do say that, but I need to point out that I have a few unfortunate scratches on my figure. You can see there's one scratch right there and one scratch right there, and those were present on the figure right out of the box. So unfortunately, he got scratched at the factory, I guess, and those are actual like scratches. The good thing is like when the head's on, it covers that one on the front, and you can just barely notice the one above the bat over there. So I'm fine with it, but it is unfortunate we got a little bit of scratching there. But the good news is he's not flaking. Nothing's flaking off of him. Like the MOTU Classics one, they just put some vac metal on the standard like gummy armor that he wears, and that one flaked. So this one, thankfully, is not rubbing off. It's like a really, really nice vac metalized torso. So there's some really interesting things going on with this one. Because on the vintage figure, his whole arm was an action feature. And you can see he's got the standard articulated arms here with the removable parts. Because the way they accomplished it this time, if we take the hand out of socket like normal, we can actually attach his arm cannon to the normal wrist socket. Look at this. So it just plugs it into place like that. Fits in pretty snug. Looks pretty decent. It does look a little like he's just holding a cannon a little bit. But you can see they've got this little piece right here, this little dial that turns. That's what's going to trigger his hurricane feature. So he's got 3 attachments. He's got like the bolas. He's got this shield thing. I never quite knew exactly what that was. I think it's blades. And then he's got like the Horde bat blades. So these will plug into the front right here. And then you can spin the little dial on the side and look at that. I mean, arguably, works better than the vintage one. That is so satisfying. That is incredible. We got to try all the different weapons, of course. Yeah, look at that. If it stops hitting my thumb. That is so cool. Get away, thumbs. All right, and here's the last one, just so you can see how it works. That is so cool. This is really well done. I like this quite a bit. And I think he looks really cool. Now, there's one more thing that they included, which is this extra head. This is a very cool head because this is inspired by concept art for Hordak. So this is actually an early concept for the character with this sort of like spike mohawk. And I love this because it kind of gives him an entirely different look. This is what was featured on the artwork on the packaging too. But this is a great way to make your Hurricane Hordak like totally stand out on the shelf among the other Hordaks that we already have in this line. That is really cool. Again, this is metal. That is a metal figure. I love that head sculpt. I love anytime we get like concept-y stuff. I think that is super fun. I like this a lot. This turned out really good. All right, guys, it's comparison time. So look, there he is. There is the vintage Hurricane Hordak standing alongside the new Origins one. So the vac metal fades a lot on the vintage one. Also, like, they did actually paint that torso just like the torso on this one. So that's good. That's a hidden detail that you don't see very often because of his head. But you'll see how he's got that full straight arm, and they put a dial on his back on the vintage one. So the whole figure basically had an action feature to make that work. So I think it's really clever that they were able to do the same thing by just building a feature into the arm cannon. Now the arm cannon is way bigger as a result compared to the vintage one. So maybe that's something that you don't like. I think it looks okay. I like it. I think this is a super fun figure. I'm really glad they did Hurricane Hordak in this line. So there you go, my friends. There is a look at all of the MOTU Origins Mattel Creations exclusives that I hadn't looked at yet. All the way up to the most recent one that's been released. I'm sure we'll have more of those coming soon. So what do you guys think? Have you been picking all of these up? Do you have any thoughts on how the regular Origins line is still continuing exclusively through Mattel Creations while Cartoon Collection is getting the retail treatment? I gotta be honest, to me they all feel like exclusives because I order all of them online anyway. I never see anything retail. Every now and then I'll see like one or two older Turtles of Grayskull figures hanging around in Target or something, but I pre-order everything, so I guess they all kind of feel the same to me. And honestly, it doesn't feel like any of the Mattel Creations exclusives have been selling out. I don't think there's been any fear of missing them. Even with the new Club Grayskull feature giving people early access to buying them before the general public, it doesn't seem to have changed anything, which is part of the reason why I think Club Grayskull exists to begin with, because I don't think the exclusives are hot sellouts anymore. So hopefully these continue in the sense that I want to see the Origins line wrap up the vintage MOTU toy line like Mattel promised. We actually still have several figures to go for that. In fact, that might be a whole other video topic to revisit. So maybe I'll do that at some point. I do have more Origins figures I need to catch up on though, so I'll probably be doing more videos like this as well. Hopefully you liked this. Let me know in the comments if you like these bulk videos like this. Honestly, it's a little bit easier to do them when I can kind of do a figure at a time and put it all together in one video like this. So I know people like longer videos too, so maybe it's good for that. As always, thank you guys so very much for watching, and until next time.